Hello and welcome to Stephen University. This week we are discussing Sworn to the Sword, an episode of the show that we talk about on this podcast.
You know what? Straight up, just going to lay it out there now for people. It's so warm in Britain at the moment. And I know we did a drunk podcast of MBS where we complained about the heat. I don't think we've complained about it on Stephen University. In order to do the podcast, we have to shuttle windows, shuttle doors. It's just warm, Dan.
It's very
warm. I just want to, right off the bat, because I think that's part of the reason you were like, episode, discussion, yep.
The heat has drained all my energy.
Yep, that's what I feel like.
Yeah. No, I get you. Chris, what was it about? Let's get straight into it.
Let's do it. Why not? So Stephen and Connie are jamming in the Mary Berry sense of the word and the Bob Marley sense. They're singing, they're eating jam. Those two references. And they are chatting away, and then Connie starts fighting off seagulls in a very amusing way with her violin rod. It's probably a technical name. I don't know it. It's not even a violin, is it? It's a bass. I don't know.
No, it's a violin.
It is a violin. Oh, right, okay.
I love that you called it a violin rod.
What is it?
What is it? There is an official name for it, isn't it? No, it might be a rod.
There you go. Laughing at me.
Should I look at?
It's probably not.
It's a violin bow.
Bow. That's it. That makes more sense. That feels like something I knew. It's violin bow, and Connie and Stephen's like, let's train her. So they go to Pearl. Pearl starts training her, and then it becomes apparent that Pearl's view is that Connie should be protecting Stephen at all costs, and Stephen is too special and too important, shouldn't be in the fight. And Stephen's like, I'm not that important, and he realizes he wants to work as a team with Connie. They confront Pearl about it, and it unlocks a lot of stuff about her and Rose. There's an amusing bit with Amethyst and Garnet in between this, where they're literally just there to crack jokes and give a bit of explanation, but ultimately offer no help, which is cool because it's better that.
I never thought of that, but you're right. They show up, they say some funny things, drop a little bit of exposition, but offer no assistance to the situation at all.
They don't follow him. I guess technically maybe they don't know where he's gone, but you could guess. And then
it actually never occurred to me, but you're right. That's very
Connie
funny.
And Stephen are like, no, we want it to be a team. Pearl lashes out. Talks about Rose, and then in about 1:16, because I was like, how are they going to wrap this shit up? Turns out, quickly. Pearl gets over it incredibly quickly, and decides she will train the two of them together. I really loved the episode. I thought there was a lot of good stuff. Love me some Steve and Connie, we all know that. I thought there was some lovely unraveling of the Rose Pearl relationship. I'd like to see more of that. I'm very intrigued as to whether, because Pearl almost seems so biased about it, and is so refuses to think ill of Rose, but there must be some, you gotta wonder about that. If she had someone that dedicated to her, if she was this amazing figure they've all made out to be, why didn't she, I don't know, let her down gently or encourage her not to be this way? Instead she's just literally jumping in front of bullets for her. So I'd like to see more of that. I really like the episode. I do think it is wrapped up incredibly quickly. That is my only minor quibble. It is concluded awfully quickly. They basically sit down next to her and she goes, "You're right." And then it, star on a sword, we're done.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about that. Because I was sort of thinking, like, maybe it's because she sees how good they are as a team. Is that not what? Yeah. Is that not what helps her realize that?
But that's
the
before.
Right thing?
But then she yells and she doesn't really acknowledge the Rose stuff much because that's they're really great as a team. Then she yells about Rose and then she goes off for a little emo sit down.
Yeah. Yeah, a crazy Aunt Pearl definitely returned in that moment. I was like, she's back. It's become about Rose. But it's really what I love most about this episode is how uncomfortable it all is as it's building, because it's you know it, you instinctively know it's wrong what's happening. Connie shouldn't be a pawn to sacrifice to save Steven. That's not how he sees Connie, and the fact that Connie gets on board with that so quickly shows a really sad state of affairs in terms of how Connie sees herself. The fact that she's so easily
and
suckered
how
into...
much affection she has for Steven too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that works both ways. It's a statement on her self-worth and lack of it, and it's a statement on her affection for Steven. And I think that does make her match up oddly with Pearl, who you have to assume was maybe in a similar situation with Rose.
I think that's spelled out for us in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's an interesting situation because you sort of the way, and as it's building up, you're very much on Steven's side because the episode doesn't need to spell out for you that this is wrong and that Connie is worth more than that, and because it doesn't need to spell it out, you don't have a bomb drop moment when Steven says this is messed up and you go, oh yeah, it's messed up. You're literally, when he's reacting, you're with him all the way. It's really well done. Very subtle, but very, very very well told, like in terms of the way the information sort of gets passed and the way that you understand that both the parallel to the Rose situation and also how it's kind of fucked up to start with. And you're right, it's an interesting thought that's never occurred to me really, which is that from Rose's perspective, like how aware of what Pearl was going through was Rose. Do you know? And she's been it's weird because she's been sort of deified in the show, in the context of the show. But the more you hear about some of the stuff they had to go through, the more you sort of start to go, well, she probably wasn't quite as perfect as she's been made out to be. She can't be.
Not for me, man. She is seducing humans left, right, and center. She's seducing gems. She's a war criminal. Like, I'm not having it. I'm not having this shiny Rose. No, I'm joking. Like, she's made to be wonderful, and Steven is part of Rose. So he's wonderful. I think it absolutely raises that question, and that's what it made me intrigued about more. And I will say another credit to the episode is they could have gone a more silly way with it, like when they first have Connie and Steven go there, and Steven flashes up the bubble. I was like, oh, is this going to be the plot? Like, Pearl's trying to train her, and Steven keeps stepping in the way and keeps trying to protect her, and he has to learn that let go, and that's and what they did is so much more interesting than that.
But
I love that.
That's what I love about this show is that plot, as obvious as it may have seemed, but I still would have been okay with that episode. If that had been the premise of the episode, I'd have been on board with that. That's fine. That's a perfectly good storyline. But it's this show is always striving for something more, something a lot deeper and with more complexity. Because every time this show does a story like that, you don't want it to be completely resolved. I know this is going to sound so contradictory, but you almost don't want the drama of it to be completely resolved. There's always so much left unresolved in the show, and that's kind of what keeps it interesting. Pearl and Rose's situation and their feelings and how awkward that must be, that's still just hanging over all subsequent events, and that's great. You don't want an episode to just deal with it and at the end of Rose's scabbard, if that had been the end of that, like Pearl was just like, great, I've moved on, I've settled, you've not gotten nearly as much of the complexity out of that situation as you could have, exploring it more further down the line. So with some of these storylines, you don't want the simpler ones, because the simpler ones would end within that 10-minute time frame. If they'd done the Steven protecting Connie's storyline, that's all you'd have got, and it'd been 10 minutes over, and you'd have never heard from it again. And that's credit to the show for finding the bolder, more complicated version of the story that explores some of the overall themes and stories and character situations and expands on the drama that they generate.
What's the point of these bombs, though? Because at the end I was left like, well, maybe this bomb explores Pearl and Rose a bit, or because for me the only reason you'd do a bomb is if they all linked and built to something. Mm-hmm. So is this an example of the bomb where they do, or is this Cartoon Network just shitting about?
That's a very interesting question. I think the different bombs have succeeded in different ways. Yeah.
Well, I can't imagine how annoying that is as an audience member, because it annoys me and I'm not even affected by it. But the idea that Cartoon Network is just like, it's a Stephen bomb. Why? Just is. We got some episodes. There you go.
This one goes somewhere. I think the interesting thing.
Okay, cool.
It does. I think they all ultimately do something different. None of them have been there isn't. Okay, I'll put it this way: there has not been a single bomb where every episode has been a completely unique, unrelated story. There have been bombs with a couple of those scattered in, but then a couple of linked ones in the middle, at the very least. So
So how do they avoid the bombs feeling like it's Cartoon Network just burning off episodes?
They don't always. They don't, truthfully. And what's really interesting is that there are some ones later on because it's clear that these first couple of bombs, they weren't designed that way. Cartoon Network, these episodes were long made, and then Cartoon Network decided to end that way. But once you start getting to bomb 3, I think, you can tell that the writers started to become aware this was going to be a thing, and they started planning out little mini arcs, for the bombs themselves, which end up
definitely
being...
bomb 3, because bomb 3's next, isn't it? Bomb 3 is immediately after this one.
Yeah, I think it is. And I let me just double check what that one contains. This is not interesting. Yeah, Bomb 3 has a really clear through line. Really clear.
Okay. So it wasn't a criticism about Amethyst and Garnet. I loved that. I thought but what I love, and again, it's a credit to the show, even those small moments, they really make the most of them. So it's like, well, we don't have our Amethyst and Garnet for long. So instead of Amethyst just being like, how come you're looking so sad? And it just being a throwaway line, to have her be like, why are you standing there looking all sad, Stephen? Is just like, with this like ridiculous passion, is so funny. I just really enjoyed that moment.
And also
it just felt like the actors in the script making the most of it.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know which one it is, but it is great. The delivery on that line is hilarious. Far more hilarious than that line would have ever been written down. And what really, really gets me is the way they enter the room. Do you remember what they're saying when they come into the room?
Yeah, when they're like, Garnet, what you just said was hilarious, and you just know we're never going to know what she just said.
And she literally goes, because Amethyst says, wow, Garnet, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. And Garnet goes, Garnet, master of comedy.
Yeah.
In that really monosyllabic...
It feels like they were literally like, should we just fuck with Stephen? Yeah, he's looking sad. Let's fuck with him. And then when he disappeared, they were like, should we chase after him? Nah, let's fuck with him.
The funny thing is that they've given themselves an inbuilt excuse for whenever Garnet does what she does, because it's interesting that they've created a situation where we know it's a kid's show. Usually things are going to work out, right? On the whole... whatever the situation is, we end on a relatively positive note. I like to think of it as a positive show. Quite an optimistic perspective the show has on the world. And you've got a character that can sort of foresee things. So every time it works out well, you go, she knew. She knew she didn't need to follow. and sometimes that's in the writing, and sometimes that's just me putting that there to make, Garnet knew she was not needed, and that situation would resolve itself.
Garnet was like, no, I think Pearl's going to be okay within about 20 seconds. It's fine. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got some S.H.I.E.L.D. slightly ruined because I was a bit like, ugh, grandpa, uncle,
say uncle?
Prick taught him how to do that. So that was a bit annoying.
I in my opinion, because that episode's non-canon, I think the moment he learned how to control the shield was the return, the episode just for Jailbreak, when they were being shot at by the big cannon, and he leapt in front of them and summoned the shield. That control over the shield came, in my opinion, in that moment. That's how I see it.
No, just or it was canon, and that joke was simply just a joke, Dan. It depends how you want to look at it. We live in a world where, unfortunately, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is canon. So,
well,
just have to
deal
with that.
I find it interesting, Chris, that an episode that I myself have defended and you have shat on, and I'm here going, well, it's not canon, and you're going, but it might be. It's like you want to suffer. It's like
no, I want other people to suffer in the way that I suffer when I think of that episode.
I love that we finally replaced the episode that shall not be named with the one you hate more, because we sort of
I hate the episode we're not naming more than say Uncle Grandpa.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if that's true. I think the memory of that episode is worse than it. I think if you sat and watched it now, you'd think that was kind of harmless, particularly compared to Say Uncle.
No, because Say Uncle, I just rewatch going. The other one, I couldn't face rewatching, but Say Uncle, I just rewatch going. Okay, it's madness. Just look out for the comedy. Also,
look out for the comedy. You didn't see it last time because it might have not been there, but let's see if we can find it this time.
I read a lot of comments that I was allowed to read because they contain no spoilers, saying that we should have watched that. Well, they didn't know that we'd recorded it, but that we should have done Say Uncle Drunk.
Yeah, I saw those comments and I just thought, dear Lord, those people are dangerous. We do one drunk podcast a year, guys. It's an episode.
Well, plus, I mean, listen. Like, I'm sure now they've listened to Say Uncle, they'll see that my rage sober on it was
enough.
Probably, everything you could want.
And for those wondering if Chris is getting spoilers, sometimes I'll send him the comments if I see any. But to be honest with you, lately I haven't had much time, so I think a friend of yours has gone through them.
Yeah. I got a friend at work that will take a look, and sometimes Ronnie lets me know them as well because she's listening. Shout out to Ronnie.
Is she? Does she like the show? Stephen, she must do. She's listening.
She sent me a message the other day saying that she liked Adventure Time more, and you must have made a comment on an episode she'd just listened to. And she was like, tell Dan I like Adventure Time more. And that was meant to be sassy. And I was like, he's met you. I'm sure he'd just add in the sass himself.
Yeah, I know. I look, unless you, with Ronnie, any sentence you say that she's supposed to have said, I'm going to assume sass unless you denote it with no sass. The sass is assumed. If any of our listeners want to know or to hear us chat with Ronnie, she's in one of our episodes of Nothing But Static, I think, from late last year. It was called Ronnie on Rami.
Regularly highlighted by people as one of our best guest episodes. So,
there you go. No offense to our other guests.
Just Jess, who knows Ronnie and is probably biased. But anyway, she's enjoying the show, warm to it, but she does prefer Adventure Time. We've digressed.
To clarify what her comment was, by the way, what my comment was that set her off on that was there was an episode where you were saying that someone had said to you, why are you doing it in a world where Adventure Time exists? Why are you doing a podcast on Steven Universe? And I said it's the better show because the writers of Adventure Time are incapable of actually completing a single story arc. So, I just think,
Well, what are your other thoughts on this episode? I'm aware we've tangented.
We've tangented, but for a reason. This is I like Adventure Time. This is the superior show. There's no question, in my opinion. Anywho, sorry, Ronnie. What did we think then to
answering your sass with sass of his own?
Yeah. It's a sass war.
What did I think?
The great legendary sass war. Did you notice?
But the annoying thing is, these episodes go up weeks later. So Ronnie, I'll get a message at some point from Ronnie, just like, tell Dan, and I'll be like, I don't know the context. I've forgotten. It's ages ago we recorded. Right. What thought on the episode?
Two things I had to ask you about. First of all, did you notice that Hollow Pearls now wear her current outfit?
Yes, I did.
I thought that was kind of cool. Also, what did you think to the song? I mean, obviously, the Jam song is kind of a throwaway song. It is quite fun, but it's a bit throwaway. But Do It For Her is an interesting piece. What do you think?
I liked it because obviously the connotations of her I almost wish. Because when that song starts, it's you kind of go, oh, that's cool. That's kind of subtle, but it's there. And I'm feeling cocky. I'm like, oh, when Dan's like, got any thoughts on that? Got any thoughts? I can be like, yes, this is a thought. I think it's in part about Rose. And then they're just slapping you around the head with here's her stepping in front of something and getting shot by a Rose. here's her yelling Rose's name, and I almost wish I'd like to see a version of this episode where the whole of it was as subtle as the song, because I quite liked the subtlety in the song. You probably don't get to the point of it as easy if you're doing it that way, and you certainly wouldn't get as much drama from it. So maybe I am wrong, and the writers know what they're doing. That's very possible.
Yeah, it's interesting because I sometimes with this show, they always seem to get it right. But whenever I try to analyze it, it's like trying to figure out the ingredients to KFC's chicken. The herbs and spices. Like, it works and it's good, but when I pull it apart, I don't always understand why. And I think that all logic says that subtle should be better here. Do you know what I mean? All the instincts inside of me say that you should write these things subtle and let them be there, but not so overt that it's like on the nose. But then I watch the episode and it works so well, and it's fairly overt when I actually objectively analyze it, and I go, oh, well, then I don't know anymore. I just like fuck it, like tear up the rule book. It worked. I enjoyed it a lot. Like I don't know what to do now because again, if you're going sort of more objectively, like it should. You could argue it should have been more subtle. The song is so overt, particularly. You're right. The song is a really point because it's literally the amount of time she says "do it for her" and then corrects "do it for him." Like very clearly denoting her sort of her balancing
affection
it with hers. But then if you take that away, is any of the episode as powerful? Maybe not. So I don't know. They've cracked some sort of code that I can't quite understand and unravel myself. It's magic as far as I'm concerned.
I think
it's great writing.
I think the bigger question with KFC is like how anyone keeps going back when we all like eat KFC and feel bad about ourselves, but then just forget next time we want KFC that it makes you feel that you're a bad person eating it. That I hate sometimes when I say something stupid and you get enjoyment from just not reacting and just making me seem really weird, because you're like, I could react and laugh and be like, yeah, you're right, but instead I make you seem like some sort of strange man who has a weird relationship with chicken. So cheers for that.
Oh mate, sometimes when you've been handed a shovel and you're digging a hole, I have the option to throw you a ladder or just let you dig it further. And
dig it further.
Occasionally I'll give you the ladder, and occasionally I'll just let you keep doing it. It's fun. I think you hit a gas line that time.
I like the attention to detail in Connie's change. Just before we wrap up, so when she started, I even found myself. Sounds really sad, but I found myself going, "It's very impractical to be doing these lessons in a skirt," because she's wearing this like long skirt, and that's going to be difficult for like flailing around and stuff. And then you see her change into like this more appropriate costume, and even the way she just like ignores Stephen. And at first she's having like treats from him on the side, but by the end she's just walking past and ignoring him. And even the way she's just like, "Hey, Stephen." I thought that was really subtle and really nice. And nice to see that like Connie's susceptible to flaws and susceptible to getting her head stuck in something in the way that Stephen is. It just makes you feel even more like those two belong together.
No, I totally agree. A little interesting side note that Connie's training outfit that she eventually ends up in, it changes 3 or 4 times throughout the sort of montage. But the final one, she ends up in the purple one, is actually a reference to Dragon Ball Z. It's a similar outfit to what's worn by Piccolo throughout the whole show, but particularly it's closer to Gohan's outfit from the Saiyan and Namek saga of Dragon Ball Z. More than Namek saga.
In an episode, before we round off, in an episode where we've tangented arguably more than any other, can I just vent something that it would be out of place for me to vent on any of our 3 podcasts, so I might as well just vent it here. Just started season 5 of Arrow after heavily saying to like you in particular, like, and other people actually, friends, how much I enjoyed season 4. I'm behind on Arrow. So season 6 is the one that would have just started when this is airing. Season 5's last year's. For the one before that with Damien Dark. Absolutely loved. Really enjoyed it. So we sit down and we start season 5. And I can't describe how irritated I got, speaking of couples, that Felicity just moved on and got herself a new boyfriend. I don't think it makes sense for the character. I don't think it makes sense for the show. For everything we know about that character, it just felt so wrong. And for them to not even attempt to explain it, as far as I've seen, and give it justification, it just made it just completely devalued part of her and Oliver's relationship, in my opinion. Just wanted to vent that.
Did you feel extra bitter because you were sort of thinking Steven Universe would have done this better?
Is that you just trying to link it? Or?
Yeah, desperately trying.
But they would have done. But no, I said it was completely irrelevant, Ben. Steven Universe would have done that better.
Did you like the book Stephen was reading? How to talk to people, and it says think of something to say, then say it.
Yeah, another example of them putting a gag in somewhere they didn't necessarily need to, and it just adds to it.
Yeah, it's because they don't write a script for the show. I think you get gags like that. It doesn't have a script. They plan out the story and then it gets boarded. They just storyboard it, and they sort of are developing the dialogue and the jokes as they're storyboarding it. So you get a lot more sort of visual stuff because of that. Like that's a purely visual joke. You don't put that in a script. You know, you wouldn't have thought to put that in a script. But, of course, the animators thought to put that in. Or not the animators, the boarders thought to put that in. Yeah, I mean, the Cartoon Network sort of has pushed that on all their shows, it seems now. I don't know who started it. I thought it definitely wasn't this show. But it is an interesting way to develop animated television. Cool. I will say that's...
There we go.
So that's everything. I'm sure there was something else I had to ask you, but I forgot in the wake of your Arrow tangent.
I straight up, we went over time, so I think tangents are slightly more allowed when we're over anyway. I said that it was a tangent, and there might be some Arrow fans out there.
It wasn't a criticism, it was just an observation that I've forgotten whatever I was going to say in the midst of the Arrow tangent.
Felt like a personal attack.
Ooh.
You were probably going to ask whether I'm still warm. Yes.
Figured that. Quick question, and it's not what I was going to ask, but it is, I think, a valuable one now. And it's because every couple episodes I'll do traditional, just like, where are you up to with the show as a whole? You in, you out? Like, and at this point, it's pretty clear that you're very much in. Blah blah blah. Liking the show, cool. Has this made you this experience and the experience of being forced to watch it and then kind of falling like into fandom of the show? Like, I think you have slipped beyond the veil, as it were. Now, I think you are on the fandom side of things. Now you're one step away from a gem tattoo, which we all know will be pearl when you choose your tattoo. Well, are you now any more likely to get on board with an animated show based on this experience?
It depends. If I say no, are you going to force me to watch another one for another podcast? Then no. Probably not. But I think that's partly, a time thing, a fact that we do 2 other podcasts and one that requires us to watch a lot of TV, and in the same way that seeing a great horror show wouldn't make me go back and check out other horror shows. Yeah.
And for clarification, that you're not a big horror guy for the audience.
No. If someone was like, look, I would like to. I would like to watch more Rick and Morty. I hear BoJack Horseman's amazing, but BoJack Horseman.
That's incredible. It's coming back this year. I'm so excited.
But
that is arguably, if we're going for emotional punch, that is the show. I mean, dear Lord.
Yeah, but it depends because there's not a show where, because like Adventure Time, as you've said, they don't stick with their story. So I wouldn't. Those two, whilst animated, aren't necessarily comparable to this, and they're also not 11 minutes long, which helps.
Yeah, see, Adventure Time will be the next logical one if we're just doing based on, like, if we're sticking with the tone of what we've been watching here. And Adventure Time has these incredible moments, really powerful moments, but they do have trouble following through, in my opinion. So it does become sometimes it becomes an exercise in frustration, especially as we now get towards the end of that show, because that show's end date has been announced. It's coming up. I think this current season that's airing is its last. So it's a bit like it's kind of frustrating because I just feel like there's no way at this point they're going to be able to wrap up everything. It's sort of dragged itself into the same weird hole that Lost did. There's almost
know that
too much going on for the show to really be able to suitably wrap itself up. And if I'm wrong and the final episode makes me feel complete somehow, makes it all feel like it all makes sense and it all works and it's all there, then I'll eat my words. I'll apologize, but I don't think it will. I think the ending is going to be disappointing.
And I know that from doing this, so I'm not tempted.
Yeah. So, but then like those other shows, 20 minutes, all right, so double the length, but a lot less episodes. I mean, BoJack Horseman is not even at 40 episodes yet, I don't think.
Yeah, but I'm no more inspired to watch them as a result of this than I would be had we not been doing this.
Really interesting. Interesting. Well, there you go. I wonder what it would take to get you like on board. Would it? Is the problem just that like you have the logic of there's an exception to every rule, so you're going like, okay, great, we found one I like one. Like I still.
No, I don't. I don't share your belief that there's this stumbling block aversion to animation, so it doesn't. I don't. It's not an exception to a rule because in my head there isn't necessarily a rule. It's the same. It's exactly the same issues that stop me being able to sit down and watch 24 or catch up on some other shows.
Okay, interesting, cool. Well, there you go. We'll call that for this week. There you go, Chris. It was a relevant tangent.
We got there in the end.
We got there
after 30 minutes of nonsense.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the start of our. God, this is just the start of our 2-week long Stephen Bomb. Oh, the 2-week long Stephen Bomb, Chris. How are you feeling? You feeling good? Feeling excited?
I'm still. It's just difficult that we're gonna be trying to juggle this Stephen Bomb with me working out my feelings for KFC. And the timings are just really off on that.
What we need now is a series of videos of you, like a series of videos on the YouTube channel of you just being like, right, it's day 3. I've had a KFC and I felt great for about 10 minutes, and now my stomach's rumbling in a way that makes me think I'm going to spend a lot of tomorrow on the toilet, and I'm not happy about it.
I've not had KFC in ages. I really want one.
Is it all this talk has made you KFC crave?
No, I've been KFC craving for a while.
Oh, gotcha. Do you have one near you? I have a KFC like so close it's bad. It's tempting.
Yeah, no, not close enough to like nip out and get one, but
just eat do KFC now. So if you had a big enough order, Chris.
Only in London. I'd have had one if they had them here.
Oh, they don't do it there
in London. No, they're trialing it in London.
Gutted. Oh, there you go. All right, well, moving on. We'll speak to you tomorrow as we discuss. Well, this is so bad. This is not good podcasting, Chris. I'm so sorry. The rest of the bomb will be better, I promise.
Take us home with the I've been.
Yeah, I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Colonel Billingham. Just wanted to do that joke.
And we'll speak to you next week as we discuss rising tides and crashing skies.
It's not next week, it's tomorrow. You've missed the purpose of the bomb.